or do you want to note the correction?
Strange, very strange.
You know that Marcus Lamar, he's, what is it, the prophet?
Big deal.
He goes into businesses and redoes them and makes them profitable, and he buys into the business. He bought Camping World. Marcus Lemonis.
Oh,
He has a TV show called The Prophet.
I know a lot of agencies are short.
he's bought this
I just hope they take good care of
businesses,
him.
turns them around, like a restaurant.
He'll go into restaurants, he'll go into manufacturing
Yeah.
businesses. And so I didn't see the show where he bought Camping World, but Craig did. He watches lots of TV. And he said that he bought Camping World. And I'm like, I have a feeling from watching that show, he's going to
The
spin
longer he
this one
stays
out.
there, the worse it gets for him. I'm sure.
Oh, it's true.
It baffles me. Aren't they losing more money by keeping it closed all this?
Gas in the tank, as they say.
They've got another store. I just saw it because I was out to MIS Sunday for the race.
Where?
And coming back along 94, somewhere
Lloyd
between,
Bridges went out of business.
okay, there's a Camping World.
Yep. Lloyd Bridges went out of business and Camping World bought the facility.
So they're,
Putting the money in there right now.
You know, they're already there doing business. But I wanted you to know that I was like wondering why Kenworth can do repair.
Director Power, let me know when we're ready.
Camping mill that got stuck.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Charter Township Van Buren Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. The time is 5:30 p.m. and I will call the meeting to order. Could I get a roll call, please?
Brian Cullen,
here.
Medina Hutchinson,
Here.
Kelly Barr is excused, Sherry Budd,
Here,
Brian Kelly is excused, Jeff Jar.
Here. Next on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I move that we approve the agenda as revised.
Do I have support?
Support.
That's a motion by Commissioner Cullen and support Commissioner Atchison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Moving on, we have the minutes for the regular meeting of July 27th, 2022. Could we get a motion to approve the meeting minutes, please?
through the chair, I make a motion, we approve the minutes from the regular meeting of July the 27th, 2022.
Do we have support?
Support.
Commissioners Budd and Cullen. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye, I'm an aye. Good. Hearing none, we will move on to the next item on our agenda. Tonight we have a public hearing, excuse me, let me back up. We don't have any correspondence that I am aware of, Director Power. Moving on, we have a public hearing this evening, item number 1, for case number 22-012, the Shalal Semi-Truck Repair Facility Special Land Use. Description is Joe Davenport, on behalf of owner Sudev Singh, has applied to construct a 8,320 square foot truck and trailer repair building with truck well and site improvements. The property is zoned M2, General Industrial District. Truck repair as a principal use requires a special land use approval under section 3.104 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance, which identifies truck repair and maintenance facility, minor and major, as special land uses in the M2 zoning district. A public hearing is required for special land uses under Article 12, Chapter 3 of the zoning ordinance. The location of the project is at 6100 Schooner Drive, with the parcel ID as noted in the agenda, located south of Michigan Avenue, extending between Schooner Drive West and Schooner Drive East.
Through the chair?
Yes.
I make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Do we have support?
Support.
That's all those in favor to open the public hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. This time, the public hearing is open. Do we have any members of the public that wish to comment on this item?
And through the chair,
Yes, sir.
just a point of clarification for everybody here tonight, this is just an opportunity for members of the public or interested neighbors who are not part of the request to make any comments or state any concerns or questions about it. We'll hear from the applicant in the next round of the portion of the agenda for new business items. So the applicant and staff can just hang on for a minute.
Director Power, do we have any public comment on Zoom this evening? Any participants on Zoom?
We do not.
I'll ask again, is there any public comment for item number 1 this evening? Hearing none, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Bud and Cullen, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. This brings us to our next agenda item, old business, for which I believe we have none. Our new business, however, we have item number 1, again, case 22012, Shalal Semi-Truck Repair Facility, Special Land Use. The description as previously read in at the same location. This evening, we will have a presentation first from Township staff, followed by a presentation from the applicant, Planning Commission discussion, public comment, after which we will consider taking action on this item. Director Power, could you please proceed with your presentation?
Yeah, just to give a really broad overview of the location of the site. This is a roughly 6-acre parcel that was recently split in a industrial park that's on Schooner Drive, south of Michigan Avenue. And the site is zoned M2 General Industrial District, which is where we have our more intensive manufacturing and industrial uses permitted by right and by special land use. And truck repair, minor and major, is a special land use in that district. So that's the framework in which we can review this tonight. So as mentioned, there's 2 parts to this review. There's a special land use, which has specific special land use requirements that our planning consultant will go over. And then there's a site plan where a more detailed review of the site plan and zoning ordinance standards are reviewed, as well as the engineering standards of the township. So for this first item, the special land use item, we will hear from Vidya Krishnan, our planning consultant. And if the applicant wants to say a few things about the project after that, they may, or they can wait till the site plan discussion later in the agenda. But at this point, I'll turn this over to Ms. Krishnan.
Thank you, Director Power. As was mentioned, the proposed truck repair and maintenance facility, whether major or minor, is a special land use in the M2 General Industrial District. The zoning ordinance has specific standards by which every special land use is reviewed. I shall summarize those in brief. The first criteria being, will it promote the use of land in a socially and economically desirable manner? Now, the site will convert a currently vacant lot into an economically viable use. Of all the parcels in the township, this is possibly the most ideally located for a use of this kind in the middle of an industrial park. Any impacts that will result from the proposed development will be mitigated through setbacks, landscaping, screening, and other architectural requirements, which we have reviewed in our site plan review letter, which I'll review at a later time. With regard to location at a public convenience, the use is located on Schooner Drive, just off Michigan Avenue, and it's considered as a major regional thoroughfare, making it convenient for users. For truck circulation, it is ideal from Schooner onto Michigan Avenue, heading all the way onto either 275 to the east or 94 to the west. Is it compatible with adjacent uses of land? As I mentioned, it is surrounded by similar light to heavy industrial uses, including automotive-based M2 uses. The future land use plan map indicates this area for continued light and heavy industrial uses. So we find the proposed use compatible with the current and future land uses for the area. The design of the site includes pedestrian circulation, landscaping, and other elements that are likely to improve public health, safety, and welfare in an industrialized area. So the next standard, we believe, is met. We do not anticipate that the use will affect the site's current public services capacity. The applicant is working with the township engineer to resolve some questions regarding the stormwater detention issue, which we anticipate will be completed by the time they come for final site plan approval. We do not anticipate that the proposed use will cause any injury to any of the adjacent parcels. As I mentioned, the use is consistent and compatible with all of the surrounding uses. There is a significant wooded area on the property, but that is on the west side of the property, and the applicant, for the most part, is retaining that part as untouched at this time. It may be developed at a future date, but as of this time, the part that is on the eastern half of the site is the one that is going to be developed and requires only minimal disturbance of the trees that are in that area. With regard to the next criteria, is it in harmony and conforms to the applicable regulations? As I've mentioned, subject to the design revisions being made to the site plan, this standard will be met. And finally, the major truck repair facility use is related to a valid exercise of the township's police power, which is to be implemented for a special land use. In addition to these general standards, there are two specific criteria for vehicle service uses from Section 5.141 of the zoning ordinance. The first standard states that service stations, commercial garages, they're all considered the same, whether it's for truck or for automotive uses. They shall be located at least 500 feet from any entrance or exit to any school or playground or play field. With all of the surrounding uses being either vacant or industrial or planned industrial, the standard is not applicable. The minimum amount of frontage required on a public street is 150 feet, and the site has 274 feet of frontage on Schooner Drive and complies. Based on our review of the proposal, we believe it meets the general standards as well as the specific criteria for vehicle service uses. So it is our recommendation that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the proposed special land use to the Township Board of Trustees, subject to full site plan approval. I shall be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Krishnan. With regard to the specific special land use request, does the applicant have anything that they wish to present at this time? I know you have a larger presentation that you may want to go over for your site plan. The applicant will wait till the site plan process. At this time, we could entertain our Planning Commission discussion. Do we have any discussion from any of the Planning Commission members related to this special land use request? Great, I'm hearing none. Normally, we'd like to entertain any comments from the public, if there were any. Director Power, anything on Zoom?
No, there's nothing else on Zoom at this time.
Well, at this time, I would like to see if the Planning Commission would consider an action on this special land use request. Do we have a motion to make a recommendation to the Township Board at this time?
Through the chair, I would like to make a recommendation for that the Board of Trustees considers a special land use for case number 22012, Shahel Semi-Truck Repair Facility located at 6100 Schooner Drive, parcel ID V12583-017990014-714.
Do I?
Support.
Excellent. Commissioner Atchison, were there any no conditions in the letter, were there, that you wanted to include?
Please, all the conditions notated by the McKenna letter, authored by Ms. Krishnan, dated from July 19th, 2022.
Excellent. Do I have support for? Support Commissioner Budd. All those in favor? Oh, I believe this needs to be a roll call vote, as this is a recommendation of the Township Board. Could we have a roll call, please?
Brian Cullen,
Yes.
Yes.
Bud,
Motion passes. You have our recommendation for your special land use.
Yeah, yeah.
At this time, I think we'll move on to item number 2, case number 22012, Shalal Semi-Truck Repair Facility Preliminary Site Plan. Joe Davenport, on behalf of the owner, Sudev Singh, has applied to construct an 8,320 square foot truck and trailer repair building with truck, well, and site improvements. The property is again zoned M2, General Industrial District, is located at 6100 Schooner Drive at the aforementioned parcel ID, which is located on south of Michigan Avenue, extending between Schooner Drive West and Schooner Drive East. For this action item, we will first take a presentation from Township staff, followed then by the presentation by the applicant, followed by Planning Commission discussion. Any public comment, followed by possible action on the item. Director Power, would you like to begin with your presentation, please?
I would like to. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would like to just reference that now we're getting into the detailed site plan review that I referred to earlier. So we will ultimately hear comments from our planning consultant, our township engineering consultant, and then I can summarize the fire marshal's comments as usual. I will just point out that for some visual aid tonight, we have, first of all, a nice full-sized color rendering on a whiteboard here from the applicant. And then I also have some plans available on the screen. These are excerpts of the site plan set that were in your packet. And these plans dated from July have actually been updated to reflect some of the comments in the reports from our consultants, but they have not, those updates have not been reviewed yet. So you may have some comments from the applicant about the conditions being addressed, but that's kind of in flux because we still haven't had our reviewers, I haven't given them a chance to review them yet in full. So regardless, you'll see these plans and they're generally consistent with the plans that are current. And we have a site plan with layout information, utilities, landscaping, and then one of the architectural renderings on the screen as well as what's in front of you here. So what I think I'll do is just leave the site plan graphic up on the screen for Ms. Krishnan and Mr. Potter, and if we need to toggle through these images anymore, we can. The applicant can also do that on the computer here as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Power. We already went through the zoning. The site is zoned M2, General Industrial, and the proposed use is a major truck repair facility, which you just made a recommendation on the special land use for. With regard to the setbacks, the required setbacks for the M2 district are front 60 feet, side and rear 50 feet respectively. The proposed building complies. The maximum permitted building height in the M2 district is 40 feet, and this building, as proposed, stands at 21 feet. The maximum permitted lot coverage is 35%. Since the rear half to 1/3 of the site is being left untouched, the proposed lot coverage is 3.8%, and that is only the building footprint. We do not include impervious surface area in lot coverages. With regard to access and circulation, if you look at the site plan, there is a single curb cut shown off Schooner Drive, which is intended for two-way movement of vehicles. The width of the access drive is 36 feet, and that's because most of the vehicles coming into the site are obviously trucks, and they need adequate turn radii to be able to move around the site, get into the building for repair, and also exit the building. Per the revised site plans, the fire lane access has been provided along the building. The drive on the south side is shown at a width of 24 feet, which implies a two-way movement of vehicles. 24 feet, if it's one way, it is 15 feet. If it's 24 feet, it's automatically assumed vehicles can go both way. Originally, the parking abutting it was angled for one way. Now the revised parking is shown at 90 degrees. So sufficient turnaround for the truck trailer spaces has been provided over here. The plan is also consistent with the driveway separation requirements of our ordinance. As in the case of most industrial uses, cross-access is not being provided to any of the neighbors for security reasons. A new 5-foot wide sidewalk is proposed along the site's Schooner Drive frontage east and west. Even though they are not developing the western portion of the site, All frontage of the site are required to have sidewalks, so the sidewalk will be constructed along Schooner Drive frontage also. An interior sidewalk, 5 feet in width, is proposed on the north side and partially along the east side, basically where the proposed office is located, as you see on that colored rendering. So anybody who's visiting the office or dropping off their truck for repair can walk into the office. So we do have barrier-free access also provided. All of the parking spaces on the site are to be double-striped and meet the dimension requirements. An ADA accessible ramp needs to be shown for the sidewalk. There is a barrier-free accessible space that is shown along the north property line. If you look over there, there is a crosswalk striped, but we want to make sure that there is a ramp from that onto the sidewalk to provide access to the building. Based on the ordinance standards, a total of 20 spaces are required and 22 spaces are being provided. The plan also provides for numerous truck parking spaces along the northwest and southwest corners, and these spaces are 12 feet wide by 80 feet deep. So basically, a truck with a trailer will be able to pull in. A 10-foot by 25-foot loading space is required, and since the site has a truck well on the northwest corner of the building, that meets the requirement of the ordinance. We have extensive landscape requirements abutting the frontage along Schooner Drive, and in this case, we have reviewed the frontage landscaping only for Schooner Drive East because there are trees. We don't want existing trees removed along the western frontage. Frontage landscaping will be required if ever the applicant develops that portion and puts in a new access drive. So at this time, the frontage landscaping along Schooner Drive East complies. Parking lot landscaping and paved interior area landscaping also meets the ordinance requirement. Greenbelt buffering is required 10 feet wide with 1 tree per 30 lineal feet along the north and south property lines. Even though it abuts other industrial parcels, our ordinance likes to provide for separation between industrial uses and also soften the look of an industrial park without just pavement. So the applicant's plan does comply. Required open space landscaping has also been provided. There is a detention basin that is shown on the southeast corner of a site and a forebay that is on the northeast corner of the site. Now, these detention ponds, of course, are subject to review by Wayne County and final approval by the township engineer. Any landscaping, our ordinance does have detention pond landscaping. The landscaping must be shown when the plan is submitted to Wayne County so Wayne County can sign off on it. We typically do require Wayne County's final sign off on it. With regard to tree removal permit, the plans submitted don't include a detailed tree inventory of all trees on the site, which has been repeatedly requested. Now, the final submittal should include a tree survey of all the regulated trees, which is all trees 5 inches DBH and greater. And when I say tree survey, we are not talking about the area that's going to be left undisturbed. Only the area of disturbance until where the site is going to be graded for development. The trees in that area need to be surveyed, a list of the trees identifying the regulated trees and the unregulated trees that are being removed and any necessary replacements to be provided. Our ordinance is very clear that required landscaping cannot also count towards replacement. Replacement are above and beyond required landscaping. So the tree survey can be limited to the area of development, but we do need it. We cannot, the Planning Commission cannot approve tree removal without the benefit of that survey. The applicant has provided a photometric plan. There are 9 25-foot light poles and 8 exterior wall-mounted fixtures shown. Manufacturer's cut sheet details have been submitted, consistent with the recommendation for JSB builders not so long ago. The applicant is also installing a 15-foot tall light pole at the entrance of Schooner Drive so that the site is identifiable during the nighttime for fire or emergency vehicles, and it's consistent in height with the light poles along the frontage of all of the other sites in that industrial park. With regard to architecture, the building will be constructed of metal siding, metal standing seam roofing, and decorative single-score CMU block with an accent banding. Typically, industrial buildings in an industrial park are all metal. However, over the years, we have painfully upgraded the quality of the industrial buildings that we have been getting over here, and I think the applicant has done a good job to come up with something that is functional, but at the same time looks good in that area too. The revised elevations do indicate alternate materials to enhance the office portion. There is a wood grain composite material, vinyl siding, and smooth hardy board modular panels proposed. And there is awning. It's not very clearly visible on that, but there is a suspended awning, that cream colored bar that you see above the office, and that is finish painted metal. There is a dumpster enclosure shown on the site. The enclosure will be constructed of block with face brick and provided with a cap. The gates will be constructed of steel panels, which is acceptable because they're more durable than steel reinforced wood. The brick color on the dumpster enclosure must match the building material color, primary building material color. At this time, no signage is being proposed. In the future, if any signs are installed, they must be submitted for administrative approval prior to installation. The plan does show a gate at the main entrance to the drive. The details of the proposed gate have been included with a note stating that fire department access will be provided. There is no fencing around the site at this time, and it's not really required with ponds on either side of the main entrance. Based on the revised plan that is presented at this time, it would be our recommendation that the Planning Commission grant preliminary site plan approval for Chahal Transport to be located at the above site, subject to the following conditions: provision of a barrier-free access ramp to the building, submission of a tree survey with replacement trees as noted, notation that the dumpster enclosure masonry color will match the building color, and detention pond approval by Wayne County and the Township engineer. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Krishnan. I think at this time we have a letter from Fishbeck Engineering. Mr. Potter, if you would please describe the engineering.
Evening. Our review is dated July 21st, 2022. This is for a review of June 30th, plans dated June 21st. And we are recommending preliminary site plan approval. This is our second review with the conditions noted. This is not a final review. There are general requirements listed. We need just some of the highlights, some soil-borne logs added. And in the cover page, which is required permits, you also need to address SCSC permit from Wayne County and also a road permit. We believe that you're going to need both for the work being done with the sewer. And additional details for that sanitary crossing will have to be submitted in the final plans. We show that you're open cutting the pavement, but we don't know how you're putting the sewer, if it's in a trench or a tunnel or jack and bore, that kind of thing. Stormwater basin must meet the township requirements with maximum discharge of the 0.1 CFS, which is a little more stringent than the county's specifications. But also, one of the things that we noted on sheet number 4, where you're discharging from into the basin, into the forebay, there appears to be some short circuiting with how the storm drainage is being discharged and then the outlet. So we'll be talking to you about maybe discharging from one of the catch basin number 3s into that basin, so you're not discharging then directly. It's just a short circuit, so there's no time for settlement, of the material coming in. Other than that, we had no other objection, and we'll be looking at the new plans and then making sure that all these comments are included. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Director Power, I believe we have communication from the fire department. Could you cover that, please?
Thank you. The fire marshal had completed a third review of the project based on these plans, which are actually dated late June and received by the township in July. But his third review of those plans revealed that all the previous fire department concerns were addressed. There are just some advisory comments in here that the NFPA 1 of 2018 is the adopted fire code for the township of Van Buren. As far as water supply, there is one hydrant within the complex of the proposed structure, one hydrant approximately 450 feet north to the closest corner of the building, and a second hydrant 523 feet south of the building. And all three hydrants are connected on a 12-inch water main, which is sufficient to achieve the required fire flow for this business. And then as far as fire department access, the plans show 360-degree circulation around the building. The fire lane width and turning radii are compliant, and fire lanes will need to be marked with approved signs closer to the construction end. If a security gate is installed at the entrance to the complex, an approved access control device or Knox padlock would be required. And to avoid confusion, the fire department requires a Knox padlock for the manual gate. The fire department does not supply the lock. They just wanted to clarify that. So again, just some advisory comments, but the fire marshal had said that his initial comments have been addressed.
Thank you, Director Power. At this time, I believe we'd like to hear the presentation from the applicant. If you could come to the podium and please state your name.
Hello, I'm Lance Warden. I'm here with Shahal Trucking as well as Davenport Brothers Construction to make the presentation tonight. So as was addressed and pointed out, the building is approximately 8,300 square feet. And as you can see by the rendering, we've put together a nice modern looking building that should fit in nicely with the horizontal metal siding and then the modular hardy board planks, or not planks, but panels. And then with the vinyl composite siding as well to offset the office area and the awning. So it'll be a nice looking facility and should blend into the neighborhood very well. The landscaping is quite detailed on the project. Let me see if I can get over there there we go. So you can see there's considerable amount of landscaping going around the developed area on all sides, as well as the detention pond, which will have special landscaping per the Wayne County requirements. So it'll be a nice addition to the area especially in an industrial setting. So that's pretty much it. Our lighting will be LED, so it'll be very efficient. And our photometric grid, we're not spilling over onto adjacent properties. Let me see if it's in here. Nope. Well,
We just had 4 plans in there, so we might not have exactly what you're looking for.
okay, there's probably one here. So on this rendering, you can see all the letters. I know it's quite difficult because of the scale of the drawing, but the ones in the bluish purple are 0 lumens, and those represent the adjacent properties. And everything that you see at the property line, right there close where it's kind of an orangish color, those are all below 1 foot candle, which is the township standard. So we're well below what's allowed, and yet it'll provide ample parking for the facility for maneuvering both pedestrian as well as vehicle. The heights, as stated by the planners, are all within the township limits.
Okay, Mr. Warden, thank you. Any other presentation materials from the applicant? If not, then at this time, I would entertain discussion from the planning commissioners. Any questions for staff or the applicant?
Through the chair,
Yes.
the only question that I have is, are you planning in the future signage?
I haven't heard from the client pertaining to signage, but if they do, then we would have to come back before the site plan committee in order to make that presentation. We understand that.
Great.
A follow-up to this, you might not know this. Is this sort of business, does it typically not have signage?
I do not know.
Okay.
I
Thank
would
you.
think that they would have some, but it would be minimal. due to, what they do. It's not really pedestrian type business where they just get people off the street coming in. So I think the signage would be minimal at the most. And again, they would have to come back before your board.
Ms. Krishnan, do you have a comment?
Clarification, Mr. Warden, signage does not have to come back before the Planning Commission.
Oh,
While
sorry.
we prefer you to show signage so that the Planning Commission gets an idea of the design of the site as a whole, since you don't know what it's going to be at this time, you will be submitting the documents only for Director Powers' review and approval. It will not come back before this body.
Great, that makes it easier.
I thought you would be happy to hear that. So.
That, of course, being one of the conditions in our staff's recommendation. Do we have any other questions from the commission? I have two quick questions. First, when I believe in the McKenna letter, there was a reference to a light pole going in on the entrance to Schooner.
Yes.
That's at the entrance to the property from Schooner. That's
Correct.
not out on Schooner, right? Okay, just wanted to check. And I had a question regarding, for the applicant, the engineering request that the applicant, one of the comments in the engineering letter was that the applicant must do a bit more investigation into the existing storm system, showing how this existing system operates. Do you understand the requirement?
Yes. Yeah, so Mr. Hardy, the engineer for the project, is diligently working on that.
And I'm not asking because I doubt that you understood it. I'm asking because in this property, I know we have had this question come up before about how the existing storm sewer was installed. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of it. That is all the questions that I have at this time. Hearing none other from the Planning Commission, I would ask Director Power or anyone in the audience have any comments they'd like to make regarding this item? Director Power, anyone from Zoom?
There's nobody in the virtual audience.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
At this time, I believe, having no more comments or questions, that we are perhaps ready to take action on this item. Do I have a motion regarding the preliminary site plan approval?
Through the chair, I move to grant Shahal Semi-Truck Repair Facility Repair Facility Preliminary Site Plan Approval. On behalf of Joe Davenport and Davenport Brothers, on behalf of owner Shekdev Sign, to construct an 8,320 square foot truck and trailer repair building. Based on the facts and the findings from the letters contained, the McKenna letter dated July 19th, 2022, the Fishbeck letter dated July 21st, 2022, and also the Van Buren Fire Chief's letter dated July 13th, 2022.
Excellent. Do I hear support for that motion?
Support.
Support. Commissioner Cullen. I think I would like to do this one as a roll call vote, please.
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Atkinson,
Yes.
Brian Cullen,
Yes.
Jeff Jar.
Yes. And the recommendation passes. You have your preliminary site plan approval. Excellent. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, we have a zoning ordinance discussion for side entry garage and building separation requirements for residential developments, in which the Planning Commission is requested to discuss zoning requirements for minimum percentage of side entry garages and building separation in residential developments. This item will have a presentation from staff, followed by some Planning Commission discussion, and then we'll take it from there. Director Power, would you like to open up with the presentation, please?
Certainly can. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Planning Commission. We wanted to just continue the momentum on our discussion from the last meeting on this topic, recognizing the need to start to think if it's time to be a little more flexible with the way we can accommodate different housing types and different housing needs in the township. And we had decided to, the Planning Commission had decided to recommend to staff to continue to look at options for both providing some flexibility with a minimum 30% side entry garage requirement for detached dwellings in site condominiums and platted subdivisions, as well as look at recommendations from staff on a required 20-foot minimum building separation for detached dwellings in planned residential developments. So two things that kind of relate and intermingle. But we wanted to just take a look at those rules because they've served a good purpose, but we did want to see if there's a valid reason to give some flexibility to those requirements to enable some more housing options that might be able to be accommodated on smaller lots. So I'll turn this primarily over to Ms. Krishnan to go over the details of these ordinances, but generally we were looking at that 20-foot minimum separation requirement. You'll see some recommendations in the zoning ordinance regarding leniency to be considered by the Planning Commission and Board of Trustees, where fences or structures would have to be clear adjacent to single-family dwellings, that township engineering standards for grading would need to be met, and construction easements may be required between properties. And then grading, how the grading can be an issue between properties that are close together. This is just kind of a crude graphic to demonstrate that you want to make sure you have positive drainage toward either the front or the rear yard, and that's one of the issues that Ms. Christian brought up from one of the neighboring communities where there are buildings closer together than 10 feet, is you want to make sure you have drainage established between those buildings because you can have a real problem otherwise. And then side entry garages with the minimum side entry garage requirement. I know I'm going through kind of rapid speed here, but I'm just going to skip the details and kind of illustrate the concept. We have a typical side entry
Excuse me,
garage
Director
unit.
Power, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt you, but I think I didn't give the applicant a chance to retrieve their materials from the podium, and I think they'd like to collect those. And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
Didn't listen to this whole discussion.
Yes, thank you.
Gentlemen, good luck on the project. I'm sorry, Director Power, please go ahead.
Problem at all. Nope. That is completely fine.
Yeah. We're holding them hostage.
A little pause anyway. So here's your typical side entry garage door concept, and this is what we require 30% of all houses to have in residential platted subdivisions and site condominiums as far as the detached units. And then, but we're looking at, that serves a certain aesthetic purpose because you're not staring at a large obtrusive overhead door when you're walking down these streets. But we do wonder if there are alternative means to meet those kinds of aesthetic intents, whether you're looking at some architectural treatments on the garage doors, applying more brick to the front facade, recessed garage doors, or other options that an architect may bring up. So I will step back and just kind of keep that imagery in mind so you know kind of what we're referring to when we talk about building separation and side entry garages. And I'll turn this back over to Ms. Krishnan to go over the details of the ordinance.
Thank you, Director Power. So Dan and I had an opportunity to work really fast on this. We last discussed it at our July 27th meeting. And the reason why we are working on it is there are some existing PRDs within the township that were never completed. I mean, they have remained incomplete for over a decade plus. This is an opportunity to get those homes built because a complete having vacant lots next, significant amount of vacant lots left in subdivisions doesn't do anything for the value of those homes either. Over a time period since when our PRD ordinance was adopted and our side entry garage requirements were adopted, the housing market has changed a lot. And most of the changes in the housing market are market-driven, of course. What sells, what people want, and what they can afford above all. We want to make sure that the quality of our buildings is maintained while still making sure that Van Buren remains an affordable place for young families to live in. considering the prices of homes currently, I mean, even what is considered as a starter home, it's a lot of money to put forth for a young family. So that said, the other issue we looked at is, which is tied to the ordinance we are discussing, is which results in narrower lots. Narrower lots impact the ability to have a side entry garage and also the separation between buildings. So the two are innately linked to each other. I did some research and I looked through the ordinances of Canton Township, Ipsy, Lyon, Plymouth, Pittsfield, and the city of Novi. And in almost all of the ordinances, they encourage side entry garages, but there is no mandated minimum that you must have 30%. Also, most of these ordinances have a building separation requirement of only 10, not 20 feet. Some of them have 20 feet, but that is for the larger lots, not for the smaller lots. We had very good discussion at the last Planning Commission meeting, and the Planning Commission brought up some very important concerns. If there's only 10 feet, what happens in the event of an emergency if there is a fence running through the middle of both the properties? Now you have only 5 feet. How are you supposed to get through? What if somebody is building on one side and now you're trespassing on your neighbor's property, technically to get to your backyard? There were lots of concerns that were brought up, and we made sure to take detailed notes and write an ordinance which hopes to address all of those questions. So first and foremost, we went to the Prd Design Guidelines, and while the Prd allows for deviation from a lot of standards, the one standard it clearly says is minimum building separation requirements may not be modified. So the amendment you see before you, the strike-through shows the text we are taking out, and the underline shows the new text we are adding in. So under the building separation requirements, instead of keeping it brief, we added significant new language which says any detached single-family principal or accessory structure in a PRD shall be located at least 20 feet from another detached principal single. But we give the Township Board of Trustees, upon recommendation from the Planning Commission, the ability to modify it. And the Planning Commission will make that determination not arbitrarily. I mean, you need to have some tools to decide, they're reducing it from 20 to 10 feet. What is the justification? You need to have tools to justify it. And those tools would be, if you're reducing it from 20 feet, any less, you cannot have any fences between the two properties. You will need to provide drainage between the two properties, which currently is not a requirement in most zoning ordinances. And the reduced building separation is actually creating a big problem in Plymouth Township because they have flooding problems. They're not requiring drainage between two properties. So when from 20 you come down to 10 and there is a heavy rainfall, the water really has nowhere to go. So we are requiring positive drainage either to the front or the back by creating a French drain, swale, or other means of getting the water out. And we are also requiring that there should be a construction easement, reciprocal construction easement granted. So if somebody is doing a patio work in the back and they have this bobcat or something going to the back to lift it and it goes over the neighbor's grass, they will restore it. The reciprocal agreement has to be there between the properties. And that will be something that will be tied to the requirements of the PRD itself. It will be part of the PRD agreement, properties with separations limited to this. Once we drafted it, we suddenly came upon the requirement. There's a section of the ordinance that says permitted projections, where you're allowed to have a chimney or a bay window or something sticking out. Now, if it's already 10 feet and you have a bay window which is allowed to stick another 18 inches on both sides, you've taken out another 3 feet. So we made sure to write that if the building separation is any less than 20 feet, no projections shall be allowed, including any of the permitted projections. Like I always say, there are unintended consequences of any ordinance change. You don't realize what else you're tripping up. Luckily, we remembered this. We're like, what happens if somebody wants to put up a, huge bay window with a sitting area under the provisions allowed by the ordinance? Now, suddenly it's like a narrow tunnel. We don't want that. So we said, you shall have nothing. If you want that, then your buildings have to be further apart. So we added that requirement into. And we also added a similar requirement for attached dwellings when structures are attached, like if you have townhouses or something, similar requirements. So we have requirements for detached and we also have for attached single-family dwelling units. The same standards pretty much, that no projections or structures shall be permitted in the separation. You shall have positive drainage either to the front or the back. Grading should be sufficient, and you need to offer reciprocal easements between the two properties. So that was how we addressed the building separation. That then brought us to the single-family residential where the side entry garage feature was mandated. Since we took out that 30% requirement, I actually, over the past week, this question came up in one of my other client communities, and we happened to look at some of the Cherry Hill Village properties where there are side entry garages on 50-foot wide lots. The resulting, there is zero grass. There is nothing. The property is 90+% impervious. There's no grass. They have no yard. So they neither have a front yard, nor do they have a backyard, because they have put their home, there is a 5-foot setback on one side, the house is there, then they have a driveway that is 15 feet, goes to the back, and in order to provide the turn radius for that, they have paved the whole of their backyard. So they literally have no yard space. There's no question of kids playing or you growing anything, it's all concrete. So if you look at the aerial images, satellite images through Google Maps itself, just if you get a chance, just scroll over and see the map for Cherry Hill Village, and you'll see when you force rear entry garages, which are not off an alley, you're going to have fully paved lots. And a couple of parcels have swimming pools also in the back. Oh, forget it, they have not even a blade of grass anywhere. So we don't want that. We don't want it to result in something that has got no play area, or, that's landscaping contributes a lot towards softening the appearance of a building. So our ordinance currently says that the buildings, when built, have to be substantially different in 3, and Commissioner Jar, you had pointed, why not we make it 4 and add another requirement for the side entry? So it's the developer's option to pick 4 of the 6 options permitted, which we think is a great idea. And rather than put in specific, your garage shall be ornamental or this, rather than mandate it and once again go into murky waters, which can become subjective. I mean, I might think it looks beautiful, but somebody else might think, a garage with so many windows, we really don't want to see what's inside there. So maybe the developer, some garages are better not seen inside, right? Including mine. So maybe this would be, the developer can pick the option saying, you know what, I'm going to have the standard garage door, but I'm going to recess it at least 5 feet off the front of the house. So it's set to the back and the door is what you primarily see. Or I'm going to break up 100% of the front in order to make it look more enhanced because I have a front entry garage. So the Planning Commission will have the ability, based upon the enhanced architecture provided, to decide, okay, side entry garages, our recommendation is 30%, but if you're not meeting it, what else are you doing that is upgrading the quality of buildings over here? So we have attempted in the draft text before you to capture all the concerns that were brought up at the last meeting. That was just the first discussion. So this is our first brush at trying to make sure we caught everything, but please do review it at this time, or if you could provide Director Power and me with any comments or feedback on what you think we need to add or what we may have missed, we would appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Krishnan. I guess at this time, we would entertain some Planning Commission discussion on this item. And I think we can do this as more of an open discussion.
Right.
So please, Commissioner Atchison, if you have something you want to talk about, please.
Yes, I went house shopping with a friend of mine to Cherry Hill Village. It was 20 years ago when they were first building it. And I had commented about how close together the houses were, sometimes you don't want to hear what your neighbors are doing and you don't want them to hear what you're doing.
Really?
The response I got back from the development, because we were there in the sales office, was that this was a new concept that they wanted to bring community people together, that neighbors, they don't want to be a garage community where you just pull
Correct.
into your neighborhood, go into your garage, shut your garage door, and you don't know your neighbors.
Correct.
Then I mentioned, wow, these yards are so small. The response back was they had common areas, and they wanted to not force, but have people of that neighborhood move and gather in the common
Correct.
areas. So that was the justification. And at the time I thought, wow, okay, that's great. I'm not moving here, but I think it's great. So I just wanted to add that comment because it seems like that is a very, very popular
very-
community. The homes sell very quickly there. And if we could build more houses and there's people out there that want to buy them, bring the developers on to see if, they could bring something like that to our community. The only caveat I say to that is that I really like common areas. If there's not going to be a blade of grass in the yard, we do have to have the common area.
Got it.
Thank you.
Yes, Cherry Hill Village was a novel concept when it came up all those years ago, and that is why every home has to have a porch. The Cherry Hill Village has got an overlay district. It's called the Cherry Hill Village Overlay, which has got specific architectural requirements that mandate porches. So it was intended like it's the olden type of subdivision where in the evening you would sit on your porch, sip coffee, and be able to chat with your neighbor right on their porch. Kids would come back from school and all hang out together in the common park area. It was a nice concept. It still is very popular, but too much closeness also sometimes, if neighbors don't get along, becomes a problem. So at the time Cherry Hill Village was built, the side entry car garage was not really a concept that had caught on. That came later. That came in like the mid-90s or so, when people moved to the suburban lots that were much bigger and side entry garages became a big thing. So once again, just like architectural styles evolved, it was meant from porches to side entry garages. Now they're deciding, maybe side entry garages takes up too much room and wide. Maybe we need to focus back on architecture. So that's a good point. We need to have, if there are going to be narrower lots, maybe we need to have more common open space amenities for the residents to use, and it cannot include the detention pond, right? Somebody tried to tell us, I have a detention pond. Like, seriously, we're not going swimming there, so it's not going to work.
You can't include the detention pond. That's in our ordinances now.
I guess my question would be, I know we talked last about these garage doors and garages that are set so far about, so all you see is the snoot nose of the garage in the front yards.
Right.
It's kind of addressed that you can have a deviation by recessing the garage door 3 feet behind the face, but I don't think it addresses the fact that I don't want to see all of these front garages, that all you see when you walk out is all the garage.
If I could add to that, I think one of the things we talked about in the previous meeting was that the examples you showed all had a garage door and a portion of the home, and it was essentially, they look great, but the garage door took up less than 50% of the frontage of the house in all of the pictures. And while there was the proposed text you brought to us has got a pull the garage back in order to make it visually less large, there isn't any direct reasoning along the lines of, well, the front of the face of the house shouldn't have a garage that takes up 60% of the face of the house, even if it is set 5 foot back. The garage should not be that large, and I think having that width, I think Commissioner Cullen actually brought up that it was the width, it was the whole front of the face takes up that the garage door is the entire front of the house, and that's maybe what.
Yes.
One of the essences that we hoped to capture. Is that
Right.
Did I say that right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, now that you mention it, I remember your concern was, one of the requirements you said, not just recessed, no more than 50% of the front facade can be occupied by the garage. If that means the garage becomes 1.5 car garage, so be it, Anyway, people park in the driveway too. So I will definitely add that requirement in over there.
And
Thank you.
I still don't want them sticking out
Like that.
like that. That every time you turn around, that's all you see is that snub nose from that garage.
I think I'm with you on that one, absolutely.
Well, we are on that topic then. I wonder, would the commission give us some direction to, now we're talking about things to exclude in single-family dwellings and plats and site condos. Would it be exclude units that have a garage that extends past a certain point, or are we looking more in the lens of just as a trade-off for the reduction in side entry garages? Maybe you commit to having fewer garages with a protruded snout, if you will.
Or maybe you can limit the percentage of the garages with the snout kind of design. Say there are 100 homes, no more than 20% of all the homes within the subdivision can have a garage that projects in front of the front facade of the dwelling. Or
Well, yeah, that might work, but I still think they could protrude some, but just not this whole
Oh, not the entire garage sticking out like 20 feet.
sticking out in front of the building. Even if it came up like 4 or 5 feet and came in front of that, I think they could do design with how they would do a canopy over that that would tie into the front door with a walk. Because it seems like more homes now that I've noticed are not having those big garages. But I want to make sure we don't end up with whole subdivisions with these garages that all you see is the garage.
Right, and
And it's not even the doors, it's just it's sticking out.
the shadow from that garage actually overwhelms the front entrance to the house, which goes into the recess in the back. We can add requirements for that.
I
Okay.
don't know how to express it, but you know, you could have a home that had 50% of its, you're looking straight at the house. 50% of that area that you see as a garage door, the other 50% is the entryway and the porch maybe. You could take the same size, the same frontage of house. If you shove the garage backwards, visually it no longer takes up 50% of your field of view. It's the same size garage. It's got the same front face area. But because of the way it's oriented, because of its location, it is visually less snooty. Right? I don't know. It's not sticking out as far. It has less visual weight architecturally, and I think that's, you know, this is where it gets difficult for us as planning commissioners, because we're trying to codify a desire for a look, and I'm not good at that. I'm not sure how we put that in the language, but I think I know what our intent is.
Yes,
But how we code it up is
The hard part.
that's the hard part. Yeah.
That's Dan and my job. We will write language to codify. So basically, no more than 50% of the front facade of a structure shall be occupied by a garage door. We shall also see a certain set, no more than a certain set projection, or we shall say no more than 50% of the depth of a garage shall project beyond the front of the dwelling. So basically, if a garage is 20 feet deep, no more than 10 feet of it can stick out in front. You don't want the whole 20 feet sticking out. Typical garage depths are 20 to 22 feet.
Right.
So we can limit just how much of it comes to the front. So either it ends up being reasonably closer to the front door, just like a jog in the wall, or it gets recessed. So it doesn't stick out all the way to the front.
Right, because I think they can do other architectural designs with overhangs that covers the front door and make it look like it isn't all you're seeing is that snub nose sticking out there.
And for clarification, from my point of view, what we're talking about is perhaps removing the side garage requirement, or providing a provision for removing the 30% side garage requirement. And I'm looking at this as construction methods that would allow a developer to, you don't need to have it on the side because you have done this step to minimize the visual size of the garages throughout the development. You are therefore no longer required to put 30% of them to the side, if that makes sense. Because I think that's what we're talking about is perhaps mitigating or removing that 30% side garage requirement in a PRD, right?
Dan, should we qualify it for what lot sizes we are talking about? If a developer comes with these larger lot subdivisions with 70 feet, I still want them to put in the side entry garages. It's not a bad requirement.
Not bad.
We are basically designing this for giving us the ability to finish up the 50-foot wide lots with an architecturally superior building that still can't do the 30%. So maybe we need to qualify which type of parcels this is applicable to, not across, because we don't want to encourage developers to say, oh, I don't have to put in any side entry, let me just chop this up into even tinier little lots, because under the PRD you can get density bonus.
Yes.
So if we completely remove the side entry requirement, they'll come up with no 70-foot lots. They will chop everything into 50 feet because you can squeeze in more lots then.
That could be too.
Well, the way it's written right now, we take the 30% requirement and provide options for adding value to all the units that would be used for side entries, and taking those and saying they have to be recessed doors or other treatments. I guess that is a question to consider. Do we want to rule out that there could be a development with all 50-foot lots or 60-foot lots and require, I mean, then we get into kind of really at a detail level regulating how many lots or what size in a development. I don't know if we want to get into that granular of a detail with this ordinance.
But if we have a PRD, isn't the PRD's original density calculated based upon the underlying zoning district? So say we have country
parallel
walk, the
plan.
underlying zoning is R1A. R1A's required lot width is 80 feet, 70 feet? 70 feet, I think.
80, I believe. That's, yes. B is
R1B
70,
is
yes.
70.
Yeah.
So the underlying, whatever your density is, so they will still have to work with the underlying density. My only worry is somebody starts with an R1A underlying zoning and then decides to make it all into R1C or if possible even an R1D 50-foot lots. We want to give them the PRD option with the density bonus without telling them that we think everything being chopped into 50-foot lots, that they can have some 70-foot, maybe some areas of 50-foot lots. We'll need to think that to see how we don't unintentionally encourage people to build only 50-foot lots.
This sounds like something that could be discussed, further discussion among staff, and see what you
Yes,
guys
thank
can,
you, because
see what you guys can come up with. I
When
understand.
you discuss and raise
Yes.
the questions, it suddenly,
yes.
we both discuss it all the time, but suddenly it comes up. If we do this, are we inadvertently telling somebody
What
that
are
it
the
is
unintended
okay?
side effects of the changes that we propose? I would like,
Come up with a solution and,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr.
Okay,
Brown.
it is a balancing act because we're then coming back kind of full circle to why, if we want to incentivize that there are still a good portion of the lots at 70 feet with side entry garages, then we are then going back to the developers and saying, now you still have to make 30% of your lots or whatever percentage we land on still larger and perceivably a higher market value and coming back to the issue of the attainable housing, are we limiting the ability to have those smaller lots for a more attainable housing type? So we'll think, yeah, it is a valid point though, because we don't want to just have every new project be
right.
as small as possible lot size with
Maybe-
replacements for side entries.
Maybe it won't be, but maybe Dan, you and I can discuss it and just make sure that we are phrasing it correctly so that we get all types of development. I don't want to discourage attainable housing because that is more important than ever in the current juncture where, home ownership is almost an out-of-reach dream for most people, considering how expensive stuff is. We don't want to discourage the smaller lots, but we don't want to encourage maximizing profits at the cost of good development options either. We'll just make sure that that doesn't happen.
I had
We
one
don't
other.
want every development to be 50-foot lots.
No.
I mean,
True.
then you're starting just a starter home type situation, I would
Yeah.
think, where people are gonna move in till they gain enough equity in the home or enough savings and then selling them, we're gone.
True.
We want to try to build a community where people are going to stay and remain. I believe that's,
Good point.
I guess, don't you agree, Sherry? I mean, not that we haven't been here for a year or two.
Well, I had one other comment on the garage doors, and then I want to give the building separation a chance to have some discussion on that. I want to ask on the garage doors, or I want to bring to your attention. I liked how you put in the point number 6 in the the significantly different part of the ordinances. I wanted to ask or put in, I don't know what the intent is, but I wanted to ask if an applicant was to use that garage door option as a significant criterion, the way it reads, it looks like the minute they have a side entry garage door, they also get the previous 2 points about location, differing location, and then one other point in there about the doors and the windows being significantly different. I don't know if maybe your text wants to include a phrasing in there that the garage door issue shall be considered separately in point 6, meaning that if you have a side entry garage, it doesn't also count for point 4, location of major component on building.
That's a good,
Does that make
really
sense?
good comment. Yeah, because we don't want to have redundancy, and I
Well,
did not think about
you know,
that.
and I didn't want to presume, maybe that was the intent. If you put the garage door on the side, you automatically get the other 2 points. But I
Yeah.
thought maybe that was ambiguous enough that it could come up as a question the way
No,
it's
no
the way it's
freebies.
written. No free, Ms. Christian says no freebies. Okay. Well, I think if you could consider the language, that would be good.
Yes.
I do like, I mean,
Thank you.
I
Thank
do
you
like,
for
I
that.
do like how it looks so far. Do we have any, if it's okay with
Yeah.
the commission, could we talk about the relaxation of the setback rules? Does anyone have a comment on the building separation issue?
Now, what I want to know, what is considered a fence?
There's a definition in the zoning ordinance for fence.
A permanent structure? Is it attached to the ground in various locations? Is that, because the concern I have, we mentioned the fence. I like green, I like evergreens, I like
Yep.
shrubs.
That's a live fence.
Is that considered a fence?
Yep, a row of evergreens that ties in together is considered as a live fence because it's an
Okay.
opaque, permanent barrier.
Yeah, what about a series of shrubs like boxwood where you keep them at 2-foot height? Would that be considered a live fence as well as you plant it across there?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the ordinance would call it that in terms of the strict definition in our
Yeah,
ordinance, so.
yeah, have to look into.
Intent, of course, you're bringing it up because the intent is that the area must be kept clear for safety purposes,
Exactly.
right? Okay, understood.
And that's a good point, and we can't necessarily be there for every time a homeowner wants to try to plant a shrub, but HOAs can help with that. I would say, though, that one of the things that we would require with the ordinance amendments as we wrote them is final grading certification on the ground, so that you do have that, which we require for final inspection of any new build in the first place. But the way this is written, it would be to verify that there is an actual point A and a point B and a swale that follows the township standard, actual drainage swale in the center between homes that are less than 20 feet apart. But later down the road, to prohibit people from planting anything there, that is something we'd have to try to get ahead of.
Have planted stuff inside drainage ditches, which we don't want them to do. That's not the intent.
My own family member, I think, has done that. And he lives in Ohio, though, so I'm going to give him a pass. Yeah, yeah.
It's that state down south.
Okay, fence definitions, we should revisit. Okay.
And also, I mean, even a tree, if you planted a tree, you know, a 4-inch oak tree today, 20 years from now, that's going to be larger and that's going to encumber upon what you're trying to maintain.
So what the language could probably be rephrased as, all structures including but not limited to fences, landscaping, trees, all above a certain height. I don't think, I mean, if somebody plants daylilies or something, I guess it's.
By daylilies if they need to drive through.
Like
Yeah, I
bobcat.
understand. You have any?
Lilies are no more. So,
My only contribution is I like the fact that, you know, this is being considered. You know, I
Yeah.
like the fact that we're relooking at it, and if these other communities that you had
Yes.
contacted are doing it, I want to be there too. So that's my only thought. Can I ask about the distance? Is a driveway, a side driveway, considered part of that footage to the next house? So if you,
not considered as structures.
okay, excellent.
Yeah, driveway is not considered as a structure.
Okay, I was thinking about that side entry and then the abutting neighbor.
I will say that I was not in favor of reducing the building separation at all. I feel pretty strongly that that 20-foot that 20-foot building separation is there for a reason. I know from looking at the number of points that you've added in or the special conditions that you've placed on it, that there's a lot to think about when we allow that number to go down. Sometimes when a number is written into an ordinance, it's there because oh boy, think of the unintended consequences, and there are too many to explain, it's 20. Try, keep it that way. You don't want to go there, is sometimes the red flag that you see when you're considering these ordinances. But I will say that the way you've written it, I do like that it gives the ability for us to be flexible, the township board to be flexible with regard to that that building separation limit. I like that it is limiting the amount that we can do, frankly. We don't, the planning commission doesn't get just a carte blanche to say, yeah, go for it. You know, these are ordinances. It's not up to the whim of whether or not the building looks pretty. It really isn't. So having it called out, these are the specific conditions under which you can do this thing that we aren't really recommending you do, but if you meet these extra conditions, then okay. I'll say that it didn't occur to me that we had a section that was for single-family housing separate from single-family detached from single-family attached. I'll throw this on the table for discussion. Having read what you've written, I would at this time say that being in favor of it for single-family attached buildings, that seems reasonable to me, to be able to, under certain conditions, lower the building separation in a attached dwelling that's like a duplex, right, or a triplex, or those type buildings. They already share walls. The neighbors are already one wall away from each other. What's the problem putting two buildings, you know, that close together? As long as from an engineering standpoint it's graded correctly, you know, the safety concerns are met. It would seem to me in that case, yeah, I could get behind that. I think that's good and reasonable. I'm less convinced in the single-family residence case, because I feel that when you start having single-family homes that close to one another, it would lead to developers, again, making the tiniest possible lots and then always seeking the I don't know what you call it, the special conditions in order to get the building separation reduced.
Yeah, and we don't want a whole area developed that way.
Yeah, single-family houses that close together, I'm not as convinced, I guess. I'll reserve I'll reserve my final judgment on it until you guys have, you know, worked on the text some more. But for attached residences, multifamily houses, that looks good. I can get behind that. And I think you've done a nice job really enumerating the gotchas that could come up if we were to allow that. That's my comment.
Through the chair, Commissioner Jar, can I ask, is the primary concern the idea that you now have individual owners who could compromise certain things on their neighboring properties in a way that attached dwellers would not, by having buildings be close together?
I think that attached multifamily buildings are just inherently a higher density, you know, by the nature that they have, well, multiple families living in a duplex or a quadplex. And since they are already higher density by their nature, having two of them much closer together, hey, they're already higher density housing units. And they can be very nice. There are some very nice examples in our township of those sort of structures. When it's single-family residences, I'm not as convinced that packing single-family residences in with that building separation is good. At a certain point, it seems like the developer might want to consider developing multifamily housing instead of a lot of little single families packed up next to each other, each with a swale or a berm, and no fence and no landscaping. You know, a whole row of single-family houses with no trees between them, no bushes between them, not a single fence between them. Aesthetically, I'm not there. I'm not seeing how that would look
So
desirable.
is there a setback, is there a separation distance that has to be 20 or 10, or is there something in between, say 15-foot separation distances, which would allow for 7.5 feet on each side?
Or could you set it up where if you're 10 feet on this side of separation, you're 20 feet on the other side? So that you're shifting the home, it doesn't have to sit exactly in the middle of the lot.
I'll just get, let me, if I could throw a couple examples out there. There are a couple of projects that I know in the approved PRD plans, there is a minimum 5-foot setback. And again, setback's different from separation.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong, but one of the most prominent example I can think of is the Townsend Park project on the northeast corner of Morton Taylor and Ecorse Road. And I'm sorry, I keep going back to that example, but it's a prominent example of primarily 50-foot lot with, well, not primarily, probably about half of the lots are 50-foot wide. And what you have is there's a 5-foot setback requirement. And just by default, when you start getting lots that are that size, 50 feet, to have a buildable unit, you're talking most models that people are coming in with, they have to be 38, 40 feet wide. So just by default, those buildings shrink down to their separation being closer to 10 feet. If you are talking about entertaining 50-foot lot widths, it's going to be really hard to have 20-foot separation, even if it is an offset on one side and then 20
Yeah.
feet on the other. Just something to think about if we are looking at allowing lot width in single-family zoning that goes down to those smaller lot widths.
Through the chair, I know this is through discussion, but I think this guy sitting next to me is one of the wisest men I've ever met. However, I am completely disagreeing with him regarding the separation. And the reason why is that if these other communities are possibly doing this,
Yep.
and that what Mr. Power just mentioned about, if the lot is 50 feet and they need at least 38 feet, now we're going upward. The builder is going to have to go upward. And what we've been building for the last 30 years is everything is going upward. Now you see a lot of communities, Canton, they're building first-level homes.
Lots of
no
ranch.
staircases.
Yep. It's very
Our community is getting older, and we have nothing of that sort.
true.
Okay? I do believe we have some condos off of Huron River Drive. Don't ask me the name of the subdivision. But I would believe that the builders would be looking to build one-story bedrooms on the main floor is what is needed right now. So moving upward or forcing the builder to move upward to make a profit isn't bad for a builder. They're not going to come here if they can't make a profit. And I would like them to come here, of course, but to think that we're going to force them to go upward, they're going to go elsewhere.
Would it help if Dan and I provided you with pictures of those reduced building separations in all of these communities that we
Oh,
have mentioned, so that I see your point, Commissioner Jar, where you're saying, no trees in between the properties, and it's just going to look like an ugly bunch of, just brick buildings next to each other. Maybe we actually get you examples of subdivisions built in all of these municipalities where there is a reduced building separation, and what have they done to make sure, because they all have very high architectural standards. I know for a fact Plymouth is got exacting standards of it, and as does Line Township. So maybe we can bring you some examples and pictures which will help you get a better idea that if built, what is it going to look like?
Right, and I agree with Medina too, because I don't want to go up. My house has got to go this way because I'm done with stairs, but I'm stuck. But I agree, and a lot of people are coming. I don't want a house, but I don't want them also so close, stuck together. I don't know if you can build a ranch that people would want on a 50-foot lot. So I think developers are going to have to look at doing something different if they want people to be buying their homes. I don't know if you can put, how big of a ranch can you put on a 50-foot? I mean, most people that are doing those probably, like I wouldn't worry about 5 bedrooms if I was going to build one, but I still would want a house that's,
I'll pull up some examples, Sherry, from Canton, because in Canton, there are many new subs being constructed at this time. I should be able to actually look at their original site plans, because I work for them also. I'll actually, when I'm in there next, I will pull the site plans and see what those lot sizes are. I should be able to get some
You're probably-
insight from them.
You're probably familiar with the Beck Road developments that are there. I
Beck and
believe-
Geddes, northwest corner of Beck and Geddes, they are building full ranch houses only, that entire sub is just ranch.
Well, all those rental units, they're building on Beck Road in Canton.
These are house, these are not rentals.
Rentals.
This is northwest corner of Beck and Geddes. They are going to build a lot more further west on Geddes, near Denton. There are huge subdivisions
The
coming
ones
up.
across from Target in that subdivision right there, the sign says rental units. And those homes are, I think they're like almost like duplexes, but they're all one story.
Okay, that is south of,
It's south of Geddes.
Geddes.
It's
Yes,
closer to
yes,
Michigan
those are,
Avenue.
yep.
Michigan Avenue and Beck Road.
I should
A
have.
whole field full of those things. But they're calling them rentals.
Well, I will say that I appreciate your dissent, and that's great for discussion, and that's why we have this discussion. And I am absolutely open-minded. I would love to see an example of what a housing with that sort of reduced building separation could look like. My lack of vision doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So I would like to see it, and then I think we should, if it's okay, we do have one more item on the agenda tonight, and it's getting to be almost 7 o'clock. If we could close down the discussion, if anyone has anything else they'd like to discuss.
I
bring it
just
up.
want to bring up, I agree with you on the attached dwellings. And I think, when I think of attached dwellings, I don't think necessarily of a duplex. I'm thinking more of the townhome type construction. At one time, I lived in Belle Villa, the condos over there. And that, I mean, there's 8 or 10 of them attached together in that manner. And didn't matter to me. I had a little space out back. They took care of mowing back there, but I had a little space. I could do a chair out there or whatever. There was no worry about neighbors or concerns, and you really didn't. So I can understand, and I agree with you, Jeff, on that the space between buildings and attached dwellings, if they're 5 feet, as long as you can get a piece of equipment back there if needed.
I will do some homework and bring more information back to you.
And I always remember Ted Smolinski. He was on the planning commission for years, and his always things was fences made the best neighbors.
That is absolutely the case.
That's what Ted.
Excellent, excellent, great. Well, Director Power, do you need us to direct you to continue this discussion?
Be informal, yeah, I think I got that direction, so thank you. Yep.
Thank you, sir. We'll close out that item. Finally, we have the final item on our agenda for this evening is a discussion. Director Power, I believe you have an update on the Van Buren Township Community Center pond design update. Is that correct?
That's correct, but I'll make this a two-part plus discussion. I just wanted to make sure that we got some information back to the Planning Commission as soon as we had some good information. What I'm lacking tonight is our primary township engineering consultant, Paul Kamer, who I think could provide some insight and a response to this. And he did write something up that I'd prefer to let you look at as well. But just so that you can start to think about it, following the approval of the addition to the community center, upon that approval, the Planning Commission directed staff to come back with some more information about how the dry pond would work. So we requested from Spalding to Decker, the engineer that did the stormwater design for that project, to provide a descriptive letter describing how the pond works, what kind of maintenance is required, and what the maximum depth of standing water is likely to be after a 100-year rain event, and for how long it will be present. So what you have in your packet, and I'm not going to read it or even try to explain it, but just so that you can start to look at it, there's a letter from Spalding to Decker dated August 3rd that attempts to do that. They basically describe that the stormwater system uses variation of catch basins, culverts, and swales that collect most of the property's drainage from the east, where the new addition is going, and from the south, and ultimately flows to a storm pump station that goes out toward Tyler Road. The basin is going to be deepened. The basin is currently there in that part of the property south of what's called the DPW or Water and Sewer Yard. So it'll be deepened and expanded. With heavier rainfall events, there will be some drainage that backs into the pond and gets held for a period of time to serve a stormwater treatment purpose. But by and large, it will not be a permanent pool of water. So there is some more information in this letter. I'd say feel free to start to peruse it, but I'll come back with another discussion on this when we have Paul Kamer here to provide his insights on it as well.
And I can just say, when the board talked about it, I told them how concerned we were about water and the fact that there'll be kids there, and that we didn't want them stumbling in, you know, it doesn't take much for a small child to have a big problem quickly. There was a couple board members that really thought it ought to be fenced. It is not what was being recommended, and I think it'll go back to the board another time before, because it hasn't been set in stone. But there are some, and yet you can see the object of not having a fence, because do you want them trying to have something they can crawl over or try to climb over?
You're stuck.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but, and like I said before, I'm not an engineer, and hopefully they will come, but the board does know that we were very concerned about how much water was gonna sit there. We know there's been a problem with the water that has ended up on Quirk Road because the pond wasn't working right. And that's also what Paul said, that things weren't working correctly, and it's all gonna be straightened out, but everybody wants to make sure that nobody's gonna get harmed in all of this.
Great. And it sounds then that we do want to hear from Paul directly with the explanation on it. Thank you. Anything else on the update, sir?
Nope, that's a good summary. Thank you also, Treasurer Budd, for the board's insights on that too. And that definitely will be going back to the board for another discussion at some point as well. Another update.
Commissioner Atchison?
Through the chair. I just wanted to ask, I did not see all the plans. I missed the meetings regarding the drawings and stuff. Has anything been decided on securing the police department, like doing a complete fencing around the police department?
Yeah, that was approved.
Okay, excellent. I wanted to make sure that that was approved. I had read the letter from Chief Jason Wright back in April, and then it was taken off the agenda. So I wanted to make sure that our police department was completely secured with a fence.
They are. Good. And another really good design idea that came in with the final site plan was to have an alternate in the bid set of plans that allowed a second access outside of the fenced area to right at that northwest corner, 150 feet or so in. They've proposed a second access so that if there are large events like we have with the Forgotten Harvest and other large events at the site, the visiting public will have a second means of getting in and out if they can do that. We don't think it's going to be completely necessary. The site can work without that second access, but it would be an added value if it's there. So I think it was good that the plans had that second access outside of the gated area.
Excellent. Any other comment or discussion on this action, on this item? Nothing? Wonderful.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I would ask, however, whether there were any other general discussion or updates that staff wish to give to us this evening.
A word of thanks for all of your participation. It's a busy year. You've been doing a great job, and there will likely be another meeting on the 24th, so thank you for your participation.
At this time, I would entertain a motion for adjournment. I believe we have the motion on the table. Did I hear support?
You want to have made the support, Dina.
All those in favor of adjournment say aye. Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
See, Jeff, you didn't have to worry about anyone making